Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family. Did you fail to dress up for tonight's show? No tie, an old shirt and slacks, a house dress? Well, don't give it a thought. We're glad you came as you are. We just want you to enjoy yourselves. We hope you'll make this a weekly visit. Bring the family, bring your friends. A gay, pleasant evening for all. We hope you have a wonderful time. Come back soon.
This is our 14th episode of the Vintage Century Idol Hour, and that means we've explored 13 stories from Hollywood's golden age so far. None of these films have been comedies, for one critical reason. I'm not wild about them, and because I'm not wild about comedies, I just don't gravitate toward them when choosing films. Now, It Happened One Night is a big-name comedy in classic Hollywood films, so naturally we have to watch it. But will I like it? That's the question. Well, also, we learn a new genre this week, screwball comedy. What's that? I already don't like the sound of it. Oh, and while we're in the 1930s, let's talk about Bluebell ice cream. Yeah, it's an abrupt change of topic, but it all weaves together, sort of. Just trust me. The hunt is on for a new favorite flavor. It's all coming up on this episode of the Vintage Century Idol Hour.
Please allow me to introduce our host, Jennifer Passariello.
Thanks, Lorenzo. So, no fake applause, no fake audience this week, huh? I mean, it's kind of hard to predict when we're going to have a fake audience and when we're not. I can't keep up.
I'm thinking of ideas for getting a real audience.
A real audience?
So we can sell tickets.
Lorenzo, nobody would buy tickets for this show.
Well, not with that attitude.
No, I'm just being a realist, Lorenzo. I mean, where would we even put a real audience? There's no room in our studio for that.
You mean the closet?
Yeah, there's no room in our studio/closet for an audience. There's barely enough room for my coat.
I hadn't thought of that.
Well, also, I think we need to aim for smaller goals. You know, like getting a few real-life listeners.
My very great ideas are never appreciated.
Oh, Lorenzo, I appreciate your ideas. And one day, when you have a good one, we are going to go to town making it happen. How about that?
Very unsatisfying.
Oh, chin up, Lorenzo. Hey, listeners, please meet Lorenzo, my AI-generated announcer and superfan.
Greetings.
So, Lorenzo, what's new with you?
I'm excited about this week's show.
You are? You're excited?
You sound surprised.
Well, honestly, Lorenzo, you never seem all that interested in this show.
I am interested this week.
Why?
Because we are talking about a comedy.
Oh, so you like comedies.
I love them. I myself have tried to break into comedy.
Really? This is something new. You've dabbled in comedy?
Yes, I even did some stand-up.
What? You've done stand-up?
Of course.
First banjo playing, now comedy. You are multifaceted, Lorenzo. Well, go on, tell us a joke.
Why did the podcaster marry an audio engineer? Because she finally found someone who could manage all of her highs and lows.
So that's a joke, huh? Well, I have a joke. What's the difference between a banjo and an onion?
I don't know. What?
Nobody cries when you cut up a banjo. Pretty good, huh?
I don't like that joke.
No?
Banjo playing is no laughing matter.
I've got another one. What do you call 1,000 banjos at the bottom of the sea? A good start.
Not funny at all. You know how I love my banjo.
Wait, here's another one. What do you call a beautiful woman on a banjo player's arm? A tattoo.
I'm leaving.
Oh, Lorenzo, I'm just teasing you. What do you call 20 banjo players buried up to their necks in sand? Not enough sand.
Go away.
Wait, Lorenzo, hold on, I've got more. In my ideal world, all roads lead to Florida, and that's where tonight's Silver Screen adventure takes us. It's off the coast of Florida on a boat that we meet Ellie Andrews, a wealthy heiress who's been sequestered there by her father until she agrees to get her marriage annulled. Yes, you see, she eloped with King Wesley, a pilot and a fortune hunter that her dad does not like. Her father thinks that he's just out to get her money. So to protect both his daughter and their fortune, he essentially locks her up so the annulment can be arranged. But of course, true love, or what Ellie thinks is true love, will not be deterred, and she jumps ship, makes her escape into the cold, cruel world, and makes her way to New York, where she's going to reunite with King Wesley. And that's how our story begins. It happened one night as a famous film, and a rather old one. I mean, I know all the films in this series are old, but this one is the oldest that we've covered so far. As of this recording, it's over 90 years old. Now, in some ways, I kind of think this film has a modern feel, mainly because of the way Claudette Colbert plays it. Her attitude, the dialogue in this film, it does feel kind of modern. And It Happened One Night's entertainment value holds up pretty well. So this film came out in 1934. And because this is the first time that we've spent any time at all in that decade, I thought we'd do something a little different this week. I thought we would dust off our old time machine, hop in, and see what else was happening in 1934. Are you ready? Okay, let's strap ourselves in. Okay, now do remember to keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, please. All right, dialing up 1934, and away we go. We have arrived. We're in an Art Deco fantasy world. I love it. But it does have to be said that the Nazis are stirring in Germany. Yeah. In fact, in August of this year, Hitler officially becomes the German Führer. Yes, the clouds of Mordor are forming over Mount Doom, and evil is on the rise. But you know what? Idlehour is a peaceful place of refuge, so let's not think about Nazis. Let's turn our attention to pop culture, because there's a lot of things going on that front in 1934. So, speaking of Middle-earth, Tolkien is refining his book The Hobbit around this time, having completed the first manuscript already. It's ultimately going to be published in a couple of years in its final form in 1937. Now, while we're on the topic of classic literature, I'm using the word classic lightly here, but Flash Gordon, the comic strip, is going to make its debut this year. What about Superman? Well, Superman actually was introduced last year in 1933, but this year he gets a backstory. His character will become an alien from this planet called Krypton. Now, this is going to be a really big year for the Man of Steel, because not only does he get a snazzy new costume with tights and that giant S on his chest, but he'll find a girlfriend as well. That's right, Lois Lane enters the story this year. She doesn't realize that Superman and Clark Kent are the same person. Now, if we get tired of reading about superheroes, how about playing a board game? We could do that. And we could play a brand new, super fun board game called Sorry that's going to be introduced to the world this year. Now, over at the movie desk, we have some very important developments. This summer, Walt Disney is introducing a crazy new character, Donald Duck, who is the first of many clothed characters who don't wear pants. Yeah. Well, Donald Duck is making his debut in a silly symphony cartoon called The Wise Little Hen. But there's something much bigger on the horizon for Disney. Walt has begun working on his first full-length animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, it's not going to make it to theaters until 1937, but the concept is being developed this year. Now, this summer, the Hays Code, a set of industry guidelines spelling out acceptable and unacceptable content for motion pictures, begins to be strictly enforced. Studios are to use the guidelines to self-censor their productions. Now, let's hop over to some other light news. The top 10 baby names this year are Mary, Betty, Barbara, Shirley, and Dorothy for girls, and Robert, James, John, William, and Richard for boys. Oh, and how about this item published in the April 21st, 1934 edition of the Daily Mail? The Surgeon's Photograph, the famous photo taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson of the Loch Ness Monster, was sold to that paper for £100. Now, many decades later, in 1994, Wilson would go on to admit that that was a hoax, but what a story. Okay, in fact, this is such a story that has kind of fired up my imagination. We need to take a little detour here. What came to be known as the surgeon's photograph, because he was a surgeon, it was that really famous shot. You've seen it, I know. It's black and white, a little bit grainy, but clearer than some pictures that we've seen. And it looks like a big dinosaur head that's coming out of the lake. Now, this was by no means the first so-called sighting of a monster in Loch Ness. I mean, reports of sightings go back hundreds of years, but this was purported to be the clearest, most compelling evidence of the monster in history. Okay, so I need to find a little more on this because it's just too fascinating. Going out to Wikipedia. Okay, here we go. The surgeon's photograph. Okay, here's what it says. While on a shooting and fishing trip to the north of Scotland in 1934 with a friend, Maurice Chambers, Wilson took photographic plates to Ogston's chemist shop in Inverness to be developed and printed. 2 of the prints purported to show the Loch Ness Monster, and one was sold to the Daily Mail for £100. This was published in the Daily Mail on April 21st and became known as the surgeon's photograph. Wilson did not publicize his involvement. He tried to exclude his name from the inevitable publicity, and yet he was fined by the British Medical Association for allowing his name to be associated with the photo in what was regarded as a breach of professional ethics. The photograph became the most famous on the subject and was subjected to scientific scrutiny over the ensuing years. Although there were doubts at the onset about its authenticity, no credible explanation about what it depicted was forthcoming until the 1990s. After the death of Maurice Chambers in 1994, some of his personal papers revealed that the photograph had been an elaborate hoax by a group of conspirators. The photo had been taken by Colin Marmaduke Wetherell, the son of M.A. Wetherell, an actor, screenwriter, director, producer, and big-name hunter. Okay, well, there we have our tie-in to the motion picture industry. I knew we would get there. I knew we would find something to link this to our series. Okay, but anyway, it depicted a toy submarine to which had been added the head and neck of this monster made of plastic wood. It had been made by Christian Sperling, an artist and a sculptor who corroborated the story in 1993 at the age of 90. Wilson had been selected by the group as the frontman because he enjoyed a practical joke and because his status as a surgeon would lend credibility to the story. Wow. Okay, so you never know what you are going to discover on the Idle Hour, okay? I didn't even know we were going to go there, but fascinating nonetheless. Okay, so there we have A little snapshot of what was going on in the world when It Happened One Night became a smash hit in theaters. And by the way, it was a smash hit. This is a fun, lighthearted film. It's got broad appeal. It's a comedy, and it's a special category of comedy. It came to be known as a screwball comedy. In fact, it sort of defined the genre. Now, I didn't really know what screwball comedies were, so I had to look it up. I had to go out to ChatGPT and learn more. So, as we would already imagine, it is a subgenre of comedy, and they were generally produced in the 1930s and 40s. So comedies were funny films. Any plot line would do as long as there were some gags and some punchlines. But screwball comedies, on the other hand, tended to feature a particular set of attributes. Okay, so here's what those attributes are: fast-paced dialogue, witty banter, absurd situations, and a battle of the sexes. They often feature strong, independent female leads and hapless yet charming male protagonists. These films typically involve mistaken identities, class conflicts, and exaggerated physical comedy. Screwball comedies subvert traditional romantic tropes by emphasizing humor over sentimentality, often portraying love as a chaotic yet inevitable force. Classic examples include It Happened One Night from 1934, Bringing Up Baby in 1938, and His Girl Friday in 1940. Okay, let's keep these attributes in mind as we watch It Happened One Night. I've already seen the film, of course, and I can tell you that, yes, all of these things are present. So, as I said, It Happened One Night really sort of, defined the genre. It set the stage for a lot of screwball comedies that would follow. All right, let's go to the stars of our film. We really just have two big stars. Claudette Colbert is Ellie Anderson. She's our young wife that's on the run to reunite with the love of her life, King Wesley, the fortune hunter, and Clark Gable. Now, he played Ellie's love interest. No, not the fortune hunter, another love interest, another love of her life, Peter Warren. Now, Peter Warren is an out-of-work reporter who wants to cover Ellie's story in an effort to get his career back on track. Our director was Frank Capra. Now, if you don't know Frank Capra from It Happened One Night, you might know him from another landmark American film, It's a Wonderful Life. All told, Capra has 7 films in the U.S. National Film Registry. And now for the Academy Awards stats. It Happened One Night won every award for which it was nominated. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Gable, Best Actress for Colbert, and Best Film Adaptation of a short story that was entitled Night Bus. Now, this is a fun one, so let's get on with it already. Oh, wait, not quite yet. First, tonight's featured song. And then it's off to Florida for the 1934 film It Happened One Night. Back in a moment.
Attention listeners. May I please have your attention? The following portion of our show contains a number of spoilers.
And now for our story. I already introduced you to our two main characters, Ellie Anderson and Peter Warren. Now remember Ellie Anderson. She just recently eloped with King Wesley, the fortune hunter, and at his wit's end, her father doesn't know what to do, so he locks her on his yacht while he tries to get this marriage annulled. Now, Ellie is very strong-willed. She's kind of your typical spoiled rich girl type, kind of a brat. Okay, so that's the setting in our opening scene. Now, what I always think is kind of interesting with stories like this is the question of, when do we become aware of this as a comedy? How do we make the distinction between drama and comedy? And in this case, we can make that determination right off the bat. So in this first scene, her father has some of the men that work for him bring in some food because she's refusing to eat. She's on a hunger strike, right? So these guys bring in this food, but they're afraid of Ellie. So we can see them literally tiptoeing into the room with the food. And that's our signal. Oh, okay. There's some silliness afoot here. This is not going to be a drama. This is going to be a comedy. I think it's an interesting device. If you set out to make a comedy, you're going to have to signal to the audience, this is going to be funny. You kind of have to get them in the right state of mind. And I think this film does that pretty well right in that first scene. Okay, well, I already mentioned to you that Ellie jumped ship and she decides to board a bus to New York. She is going to try to get back to King Wesley, the love of her life. Now, we do see a transformation in Ellie from the start of this story to the end. And that transformation really begins pretty early on. Then that's something I like to see in a story. Does the character change at all? In this case, I think we see a change in both of our lead characters. Remember, she's kind of a brat. She's been sheltered from the world, really not exposed to the real world at all, kind of a party girl, but she's, very spoiled. Okay, so we're going to see her change a little bit. She gets some exposure to the real world throughout this story. Now, when the story begins, she's full of confidence, right? She feels like the world bends to her whims. And when she meets Peter Warren, they don't hit it off very well. She's spoiled. He has no time for that. Now, at a 30-minute stop in Jacksonville, Florida, Ellie mentions that she's going to the Windsor Hotel. Peter says, well, you can't do that. There's no time. And she says, with great confidence, well, of course, the bus will wait for me. Well, no, it doesn't wait for her. And this is one of many character-shaping events that help to kind of blunt some of Ellie's sharp edges. Another is the fact that her suitcase is stolen. So now she has no money, nothing of material value. And for the first time, she's out in that cold, cruel world alone. She needs Peter. She's vulnerable for the first time. Okay, so let's talk about this guy, Peter. Peter Warren is a newspaper man. He's recently been fired. Now, he needs to figure out how to get his career back on track. He feels like if he can just find a really big story, get a big byline, he can get his career back on track. Well, Ellie provides that for him. She's a well-known socialite. And news has traveled that she is on the run. She's traveling incognito, so she's not telling anybody who she is. But he discovers her true identity. So he can report on her whereabouts and what she's doing. That's kind of a big story. Just the kind of story he's been looking for, and it falls right into his lap. So we have two characters who find themselves in a position of needing each other, right? She has no money, no resources. He has no job, and they can help each other out. Okay, so after Ellie loses her money and her luggage, Peter offers to help her reach New York in exchange for exclusive rights to her story. All right, well, they've got an agreement, but remember, they don't really like each other in the beginning, so they're forced to travel together. They bicker constantly, And yet they know that they need each other to navigate various obstacles that they run into while they're on the road. Along the way, they develop an unexpected camaraderie, with Peter teaching Ellie the realities of the world outside of her privileged life. Now, let's pause here for a moment and talk about the it in It Happened One Night. So, what happened one night? What night are we talking about? In my notes on this film, I wrote down a couple of strong contenders for what it refers to in It Happens One Night. One is that the it refers to the night on which they met. Okay, so that would be a chance encounter that ultimately leads to shifts in their characters and in the storyline. It's switching from a situation comedy to a love story. The other contender for the it in It Happened One Night, and I actually kind of like this one better, is the night they spent together at the auto camp. Okay, the auto camp is like a roadside motel. This is one of the most iconic scenes. It's actually one of two iconic scenes in this movie that are standouts in cinematic history. Now, these two characters, Peter and Ellie, are forced to share a room at the auto camp, but to maintain Ellie's honor, Peter puts up a makeshift wall between their beds. Now, this wall is a blanket that's strung up over a rope, and he refers to this as the Wall of Jericho. But the pivot point comes the next morning at the auto camp. So the police arrive, they're questioning her. They want to find out if this is the missing girl that they've been searching for. Well, we see the relationship between these two start to change at this point because they share a common purpose. Their common purpose is to deceive these guys that are trying to get Ellie and take her back to her father. So what do? Well, they pretend like they're a married couple and they're having an argument. And it works. They throw these guys off the track and they have this moment that they share. So, it's amazing what a common purpose will do to strengthen a relationship between people. And that's exactly what we saw in that scene. Now, this is also the point at which Ellie gets some exposure to the dire need of people in the lower classes. So Ellie and Peter jointly give the last of their money away to this kid whose mother passed out for lack of food. So they're encountering all walks of life on this quest that they're on. Okay, so as I said, Peter is taking good care of Ellie, but his annoyance with her seems to be growing. Why would that be? Well, he's starting to feel jealous of her feelings for King Wesley. Now this guy, King Wesley, that he doesn't even know, didn't care about before, is starting to matter to him. Now, for her part, Ellie is changing too. She starts taking care of Peter. So this is this self-centered, spoiled girl that only used to think about herself. Well, now she's in a position where she wants to take care of Peter. I mean, one example is she cleans up his wound after he gets into this fight with this man that gave him a ride on the road. She's evolving into something other than that selfish girl we saw at the beginning of this film. Now, while they're on the road, they need transportation. Okay, the bus had broken down and they end up needing a ride. So they decide to hitchhike. And here we have the second iconic scene in all of film history. It's the hitchhiking lesson. So Peter takes the lead here. He's showing Ellie how it's done. He's out there, he's got his thumb in the air, car after car passes them by. And that's when Ellie kind of takes things into her own hands. Let's listen to the clip.
Here comes a car.
Okay, now watch me. I'm going to use number one. Keep your eye on that thumb, baby, and see what happens.
I stood up my eye on the thumb.
Something must have gone wrong.
Oh.
Try number two.
When you get to 100, wake me up.
I don't think I'll write that book after all.
Think of all the fun you had, though. Do you mind if I try?
You? Don't make me laugh.
Oh, you're such a smart Alec. Nobody knows anything but you. I'll stop a car, and I won't use my thumb.
What are you going to do?
It's a system all my own.
Okay, so Ellie goes to the side of the road. She flashes her bare leg at a passing car, and that car stops and picks him up. This is a super cute scene, and as I said, really famous. One of the most famous scenes in cinematic history. Well, Ellie does ultimately tell Peter that she loves him. She no longer has feelings for King Wesley. But here's the scene that clinches it for her. They're in a motel room. The wall of Jericho is between them, and Peter describes what he wants out of life and what he wants out of a wife, a life partner. Ellie recognizes that she wants these things too.
I saw an island in the Pacific once. Never been able to forget it. That's where I'd like to take her. She'd have to be the sort of a girl who would jump in the surf with me and love it as much as I did. You know, nights when you and the moon and the water all become one, and you feel you're part of something big and marvelous. That's the only place to live. Why, the stars are so close over your head you feel you could reach up and stir them around. Certainly I've been thinking about it. Boy, if I could ever find a girl who was hungry for those things.
Take me with you, Peter. Take me to your island. I want to do all those things you talked about.
You'd better go back to your bed.
I love you. Nothing else matters. But we can run away. Everything will take care of itself. Please, Peter. I can't let you out of my life now. I couldn't live without you.
You'd better go back to your bed.
I'm sorry.
Well, Peter leaves her early the next morning. What? How could he leave her, right? Well, he's going to seek some money from his editor. He wants to marry Ellie, but he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have any money. He can't ask her to marry him when he has no prospects. So he goes to meet up with his editor because he wants to, get a job. He wants to publish an article and have some income, some resources. Well, he does get it. He's got work now, but Ellie doesn't know that this is what he's done. She thinks he's abandoned her. Now, thinking that she's been abandoned and not knowing what else to do, Ellie talks to her father. They, hash it out. He finally agrees to go ahead and let her marry this King Wesley in a formal ceremony. Okay, so remember, they're married already. They've eloped, but, they need to have the big ceremony, with the dress and all the people there and the minister and all of that. Okay, so it's her wedding day. And, she's still thinking about Peter, but she feels like he betrayed her. That not only did he abandon her, but he probably just, wanted the reward money that her father was offering, that he was just a no good guy. Well, her father later reveals that Peter wouldn't take any of the reward money. All he would take, well, he did take some. He took only what he needed to recover some of the expenses that he incurred on the road, so nowhere near what the full reward was. Well, when Ellie discovers this, she leaves Wesley right there at the altar, and they get that marriage annulled, and she marries Peter. And that's where we leave them. They're in a motel room again, but this time they don't need that wall of Jericho any longer. Nothing comes between them at this point. The end. Well, what a fun, warm movie. I mean, what's not to love? Well, we'll get to my official rating after this word from our pretend sponsor, prunes. It's the fruit that gets you on the run. Have you had your prunes today?
I think a lot of people don't realize how good prunes really are. Not hard and dry like prunes used to be. Plump, moisturized, tender, sweet, still packed with energy. All those vitamins and minerals, natural fruit sugars, just taste better. Do you realize that this plump, juicy prune cooks up in just a few minutes? Put them on your cereal. Chop them up into muffin mix. Delicious. You know something else? Makes a great snack right out of the package. How long has it been since you've tried prunes? You don't know what you're missing.
Jennifer, please tell everyone about our rating system.
Our scale is pretty simple. We classify a film as either unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable. An unwatchable film is really bad. In other words, it's unwatchable. A watchable film is one that's basically okay. It's entertaining, a pleasant way to spend some time, but nothing special. A rewatchable film is one that's really good, and it has enough depth and layers to reward multiple viewings.
Is that it?
No, one more thing. I have a worksheet that helps me calculate the rating. I essentially award points, or what I call diamonds, to films based on 5 factors: story, character development, writing, pace, and discussability. Now that's where I consider whether or not there's enough depth to a story to generate a lot of discussion.
Anything else? Because this is dragging on.
No, I think that's it.
Then let's get on with the show.
It Happened One Night is a classic for a reason. Now, full disclosure, I actually watched this film over a month ago, so I had to consult the notes that I took while watching it back then. And one note I wrote in all caps was, "Script beautifully written." Now, unfortunately, I failed to write down what specifically I was, referring to in that moment. But that gives you an idea of how I was reacting to this movie for the first time. So let's break it all down. Story. Was this an interesting and entertaining story worth telling? 4 diamonds. This was really entertaining. Now, I don't know if it was particularly innovative for its time. It was pre-code, meaning the Hays Code hadn't gone into its strict enforcement yet. Remember, that will be enforced later that year. But It Happened One Night actually came out in February of 1934. The Hays Code was starting to be enforced in the summer of 1934. So this is considered a pre-code film, meaning that, it did not necessarily adhere to all of the standards set forth in the Hays Code. We will be covering the Hays Code in a future episode of The Idle Hour. Okay, but anyway, this is pre-code. We did have 2 unmarried people sharing a motel room. They had the blanket between them, so they weren't in the same bed or anything, but they were in the same motel room. That was probably pretty questionable now that I think about it. And then also Clark Gable was filmed shirtless. Now, I don't remember where I heard this, and I can't verify that this is the truth, but I think I read somewhere that, he takes his shirt off and he has no undershirt on beneath his dress shirt. And after this film came out, sales of undershirts went down because now all the men were going without their undershirts. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does sound plausible. Trends happen, crazy, things happen like that. So anyway, I don't know if that would have been considered edgy at the time or not. As far as the story itself is concerned, it dealt with common themes. I don't think there was anything particularly unusual here. What were those themes? Well, that love can be found in unexpected places. Fate will not be denied. People are shaped by their collisions with each other. But while these themes might be common, they're depicted in a really entertaining way. So I'm going to keep with my 4 diamond rating there. I think that's about right. Character development. Were the characters dimensional? Did their actions ring true? Well, again, I'm going to go with 4 diamonds here. Personalities and situations in comedies are often exaggerated. So the question of whether they ring true is kind of an interesting one when it comes to comedies. I think these characters are relatable, and I think we saw both of them evolve and change over time. So I would say, yeah, I think these characters are well developed. Writing. Was the dialogue beautiful, funny, poignant, and or thought-provoking? Well, I have to give it a 5 because, in my notes, I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautifully written. I will say it is. It's a tight storyline. It's got some really interesting lines to it. I thought that, the dialogue was really interesting and fun. And the acting was really good too, although that has nothing to do with writing. But, if you have a bad script, it's hard to act in a way that makes the characters believable. So I'm going to go with 5 diamonds for the writing. Okay, now pace. At what speed did this story unfold? So I'm going to go ahead and go with 4 diamonds. And then discussability. Does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? I'm going with 4 diamonds here, which I think is really high for a comedy. They don't produce comedies so you can really discuss them and dissect them so much. They're mainly for entertainment. But I do think there are some interesting questions to discuss. I mean, at the heart of this story is a quest. And there are always things to explore in a quest. That brings us to a grand total of 4.2 diamonds. So I'm placing It Happened One Night in the category of watchable, but kind of borderline rewatchable. So I've only seen this film once. Would I watch it again? I think I might. Now, if you haven't seen this one, I would put it on your watch list. And it's streaming right now for free on YouTube.
Once there was a cow named Belle who could sing. She was enchanting to all who heard her. Everyone agreed Belle's singing was superb, and her milk was divine. And to this day, there's a little Belle in every bite of Bluebell ice cream.
I'm taking one for the team in this segment. Bluebell ice cream has come out with some new flavors, and someone needs to keep you informed of these things. It might as well be me. Now, I never claim to be an expert on movies, but I do claim to be an expert on ice cream, or at least what the best ice cream is. And I can clear that question up for you right now. It's Bluebell. Yeah, I love Bluebell. No other ice cream really compares. I know that there have been some unpleasant episodes in Bluebell's history. I'm talking in particular about 2015. Back in 2015, they had a bacterial outbreak, listeria or listeriosis or something, that was traced back to their ice creams and their production facilities. It was kind of a big deal. 3 people died. It was very serious. It actually resulted in Bluebell Creamery shutting down their entire operation. And that was almost the end of the company. But they had an amazing comeback. And in 2019, you could once again find Bluebell on grocery store shelves in Kansas City. And I was very, very happy about that. Now, this whole ugly incident did result in a criminal investigation, unfortunately. So here's the story from Wikipedia. In December 2015, the United States DOJ launched a federal criminal investigation to determine what exactly Bluebell executives knew about the contaminations and unsanitary conditions, when they knew it, and what they did in response. The company pleaded guilty in 2020 to charges it distributed contaminated products, and they paid a $19 million fine. On October 22, 2020, Paul Cruz, Bluebell's chief executive officer during the outbreak, was indicted on 7 felony counts of conspiracy and wire fraud for his part in the alleged cover-up. In August 2022, the DOJ tried Cruz on 5 counts of fraud and 1 count of conspiracy. The trial ended in a mistrial after jurors could not reach a unanimous verdict. The DOJ scheduled a retrial for April 2023, but reached a plea deal with Cruz in March. Under the plea deal, Cruz pled guilty to one misdemeanor charge of having caused adulterated ice cream products to be distributed. He paid a $100,000 fine. Okay, well, I admit it. That's not nice. That's not a good story. But Bluebell is so good. I can't keep away from it. Now, in the cold months, in the winter months, I don't eat ice cream. But in the warm months, it's on my menu way too often, and it's starting to get warm here in Kansas City. Well, this is the time of year when I start to pay attention to the new flavors coming out. Now, I will say that Bluebell has some perennial favorites that are always good. Their Great Divide is a favorite of mine. The Great Divide is a 50-50 split of chocolate ice cream and the creamiest, most perfect vanilla ice cream you will ever find. It is so good. I think it's that special added bacteria that they put in that makes it particularly good. Okay, that was a joke. That was a joke. I'm kidding. Okay, they've taken all kinds of measures to correct the problem back in the past. There is no bacteria in there. All right, anyway, last summer they introduced root beer float ice cream. That was my addiction in 2024. This was that same wonderful vanilla with ribbons of root beer sorbet running through it. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Okay, well, what does any of this have to do with movies? Nothing, except this. We've been spending some time in the 1930s tonight, right? Well, the early 1930s is when Bluebell became Bluebell. Now, according to the Bluebell Creamery's website, the company began in 1907, and their name then was Brenham Creamery. Their product was butter, not ice cream. But a few years later, they began making ice cream. And in the early 1930s, not long before it happened one night, made its way to theaters, the company changed its name to Bluebell Creameries after the native Texas Bluebell wildflower. Well, they stopped producing butter in 1958 and now focus exclusively on ice cream. See, it all comes together. Early 30s, tie-in. We're going to go with that. We're going to make that fit. Now, Bluebell has introduced 2 new flavors for 2025 so far this year. And guess what? I happen to have them right here in front of me. Now, one of them I can tell that I'm going to love. I can already tell just by looking at it. I'm going to be over the moon about this. The other one, I'm not really sure. Okay, let's start with the one that I'm not so sure I'll love. It's called Strawberry Toaster Pastry. And it's got a picture of a toaster pastry right on the carton. That toaster pastry is essentially a Pop-Tart. So it looks like it's Pop-Tarts that are mixed into the vanilla ice cream. Now here's how Bluebell describes it in their news release. Strawberry toaster pastry is a creamy vanilla ice cream loaded with strawberry pastry pieces, colorful confetti sprinkles, and swirls of strawberry sauce and white icing. Now, it looks like they rolled this out in observance of National Ice Cream for Breakfast Day, which was on February 1st. I, for one, am very supportive of that kind of a day. That makes sense to me. Ice cream for breakfast. Why in the world not? Well, here's what they say in the release. Our strawberry toaster pastry ice cream with a side of Java Jolt ice cream is the perfect combination for breakfast. Actually, yes, that sounds exactly like the perfect combination for breakfast. I've had that Java Jolt and it's amazing. Now, here's why, though, I'm a little doubtful about whether I'm going to like this. I'm not really big on icing, and it says that there are swirls of white icing in the ice cream. That just sounds super sweet and kind of overkill to me. So I'm not sure that I'm going to love it. But as I said, I'm willing to take one for the team, and I have it right here. So let me take a taste. Okay. This is the kind of ice cream I think kids would really like because it's got the sprinkles in it. Kind of looks like a birthday cake. The vanilla is really good. Yeah, it's good because I love their vanilla, but there is a little bit too much stuff in there for me. I think it's too rich. It's too sweet. So it kind of tastes like I would expect. I can definitely taste Pop-Tarts in there. It's all coming back to me now. So anyway, again, this one is called Strawberry Toaster Pastry. All right, now we're going to go to the one that I have been dying to dig into. It's sitting right here, and I can't believe I haven't devoured it already. This one I know I'm going to love. It's banana fudge. I mean, how can we go wrong with this? Banana fudge is brand new. It was just introduced this month in March of 2025. And here's our press release. Chocolate lovers will go absolutely bananas over the new ice cream from Bluebell, Banana Fudge. Banana Fudge is Bluebell milk chocolate ice cream swirled with banana-flavored ice cream. I mean, yes, I'm going to love this, I can tell you. All right, so I'm going in. I've been waiting for this all day. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Delicious. They're fabulous chocolate, which I love their chocolate ice cream, and banana. It's a subtle banana, but you can taste it. I mean, for sure. There is banana ice cream in there. Perfect. The perfect combination. I do have to say this taste test is way better than our prune taste test from last week. Oh, no offense, Sunsweet. We are never going to get a real sponsor.
Now it's time for Idle Hour Trivia.
Well, Lorenzo, I know you were excited about our comedy this week. What did you think of It Happened One Night?
It was pretty good. Not a lot of jokes, though.
Well, you know, a comedy is not so much about jokes. It's about amusing situations and how the characters respond to them. I liked it. I really thought it was cute.
I'm not really a fan of cute movies.
Oh, come on. A little cute never hurt anybody. And speaking of cute, and by cute I mean handsome, let's talk about Clark Gable. This week's trivia question revolves around him.
I don't know who that is.
Clark Gable?
Was he in this movie?
Yes, Lorenzo. He was the main character, the main man.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, so here's the question. Clark Gable was already a star on the rise by the time he was cast in It Happened One Night. He was a natural for roles as a leading man. He often acted opposite recurring leading ladies. Which of these glamorous female leads did he star with most often? A. Joan Crawford, B. Myrna Loy, or C. Jean Harlow?
All of these ladies are very lovely.
Yeah, they were, weren't they? Well, which one did Clark Gable star with most often? Oh, wait. Don't answer that. Let's give everyone a chance. 20 seconds, everyone. And that's time. So Clark Gable starred opposite which of these ladies most frequently? A. Joan Crawford, B. Myrna Loy, or C. Jean Harlow?
Joan Crawford.
Nice, Lorenzo. You are correct. He starred in films with Joan Crawford a total of 8 times. I think I read somewhere that she was his favorite actress to work with. So there you go. Now, he starred with Myrna Loy 7 times and Jean Harlow 6 times. You know, here's a sad bit of legend. Clark Gable had the unique distinction of starring in the last films of both of Hollywood's most famous blonde bombshells, Jean Harlow and Marilyn Monroe. Jean Harlow died before filming was complete on Saratoga in 1937. He also starred in that film. I have a special place in my heart for Jean Harlow. You know, she was our hometown girl, born in Kansas City in 1911. And then Marilyn Monroe, her last film was The Misfits in 1961. That was also Clark Gable's last film. Well, there's the clock. You know what that means. It's time to wrap things up. Lorenzo, what did you think of tonight's show?
It had a nice beat and was easy to dance to.
Is that good?
What's the movie for next week?
Well, I thought maybe you could help me pick. What decade should we go with? The 1930s, 1940s, or the 1950s?
1930s.
1930s it is. Let's see. 1930s. I've got one. Dark Victory, starring Betty Davis.
Is it another comedy?
Oh, definitely not. It's about a young woman who's dying.
It sounds like fun.
Well, thanks everyone for hanging out with us this week. Don't forget our YouTube channel, Vintage Century Idol Hour, if you want a little visual with your audio. Have a great week, and when your week is through, come on back and see us. We'll be here waiting for you. Say goodbye, Lorenzo.
Goodbye, Lorenzo.